Okay, I want to get started right on time, and thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Jennifer Frye, and welcome to our very first Disruptor Discussions Masterclass. To give you a little background, I am the CEO of Appreciated Asset Business Solutions, where we create, build, and fill sales pipelines for industry disruptors. Our mission is to create a ripple effect for incredible businesses and helping them grow their own business footprints. And our purpose is to create a stage to highlight industry disruptors and honor them for their courage to stand out against the status quo and really commit to doing it better. That's why the Disruptor Discussions is the most natural, aligned, and exciting new program that we are so proud to be launching with you here today. So we're going to start with what is a disruptor, because I get this question a lot. And I think probably whoever you ask, you're going to get a bit of a different answer, but I'll share with you mine. A disruptor is someone who is committed to standing outside the status quo in their business, who is committed to delivering a service that is so far superior to the industry standard that you're essentially eliminating the competition from consideration. Because at this point, it's like apples and oranges. There would be no one else to work with. And someone who's bold enough to really, really commit to doing something better. Just because it's always been done a certain way does not mean it always has to be done that way. And really stand out against all of the noise in your space. So now you might ask me, why Disruptor Discussions? What are we doing here today? As I mentioned, we are committed to helping businesses grow. And we fully believe that there are zero problems in a business that cannot be solved with more revenue. So while we have a service that helps businesses grow, I wanted to create a platform, a stage, if you will, where we can highlight other industry disruptors and show you and teach you about their expertise and how their businesses are also able to help you drive more revenue in your own. And without further ado, I am so excited and honored to introduce to you our very first guest, Kim Russo with On Brand Designs. To give you guys a little background, Kim and her team have created my entire brand and my website. When we met, I had a logo, and I loved my logo, but it certainly was not a brand. Kim was able to take that logo and create an entire brand for Appreciated Asset that was aligned, cohesive, and something most importantly that I was incredibly proud to share with the world. She has also developed our website and has been a phenomenal friend, partner, and resource for me as I've grown my own business. To give you Kim's bio, Kim Russo stands as the visionary force behind On Brand Designs, an exclusive design studio nestled in the vibrant heart of Charleston, South Carolina. As the founder, CEO, and lead designer, she not only shapes visual experiences, but also empowers her clients and her team. Kim is also the creator of the Profitable Brand Designer course, teaching creatives how to switch their mindset from freelancer to entrepreneur and create a profitable design business. She began her career working for top packaging design agencies in New York City, after getting her degree from the Fashion Institute of Technology in packaging design. In 2018, after spending her entire career in corporate, Kim decided that she was ready to make a bigger impact on a smaller scale. She left the Big Apple and started On Brand Designs, which launched in September of 2018, exactly when we launched it, actually. Kim moved to Charleston in 2020 and has been focused on growing her business ever since. Her areas of expertise include brand strategy, brand identity, website design, print graphics, and package design. She loves creating scroll-stopping designs for female entrepreneurs that make you say out loud, "Oh, love that." When she's not busy working, Kim enjoys crafting, painting pet portraits, and laying on the beach or by the pool with her friends and family, and occasionally brunching with me. So, Kim, I'll hand things over to you. But before I do, thank you for doing this with me. Being my first guest, there was no one else I would want by my side today.
I'm so honored.
I want to first ask you, for everyone here, how does your expertise, how does your solution, branding, bring more revenue into a business?
I mean, there's so many answers to that, and we'll get into that later, but it helps elevate and position your brand to be attracting the audience that you want to have as a client. So simply
Very good. And how would you say you're a disruptor in this space? Because I'm going to say this first. I've worked with other people in this space, and my experience working with you has been apples and oranges. But how would you say you're disrupting branding and web design?
Yeah, so I appreciate the help on this one, but one of my strengths that I have when it comes to creating is I grew up as a lifelong creative. I've always been an artist, creative, and I have this ability that I didn't truly understand until I became an entrepreneur, that I can visually see a brand and what the whole system's going to look like just from the initial conversation or strategy and figuring out like right away. So I'm seeing it in my head before I'm actually creating it. And bringing it to life for people. So it's
It's
pretty
your
cool.
superpower.
Yeah, it's my superpower.
I love it.
Yeah. I kind of have a little bit of a photographic memory, which is why that is able to happen, because I have such a strong visual brain, I guess to say. So I can tell you where things are if I've seen it once in a house. Like if I'm paying attention, I can have a photographic memory. And that's where that comes from.
Amazing.
Fun fact.
I am going to hand things over to you and have you share your screen so you can present for us. I will also let everyone out there know that we will have time for Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the Q&A here whenever that comes to you, and we will get to those at the end. And also we will have contact information for you if you want more information from Kim at the end as well. So take it away, girl. Dazzle us.
Okay. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about strategic brand design and how elevating your brand creates more revenue in your business. So I just want to know right now, after everybody's looking at this, who is thinking this looks awful and she's going to be talking about branding? Hope all of you do. Okay, let's start this over. Today, I'm Kim Russo from On Brand Designs, and I'm going to talk about strategic brand design, how elevating your brand creates more revenue in your business. So what is branding? A brand is a name, it's a term, it's design, it's a symbol, it's any other feature that identifies your brand that's more than just a logo. So I put in a quote here. I'm actually on the board for American Marketing Association. So brand is a name, term, design, symbol, or anything featuring that identifies one seller's good or service as distinct from those of other sellers. And so today we're going to talk about how to elevate that branding to support you in making more money. So the power of branding, your logo is the first impression someone gets of your brand. It sets the tone for the rest of your brand, and it's crucial to have that starting foundation and that representation right away. So back to my earlier slide, it takes 5 seconds to give somebody a visual impression of your brand. So in that first initial 5 seconds, they're going to decide if they want to work with you or not. So first impressions do matter, and showing up with that visual impression is super duper important. And then I want to talk about all the different elements of your brand that's going to help to elevate it. So another thing that really is going to help elevate your brand to stand out is color. So increasing a usage of a signature color. So I'm wearing here today my teal because it's part of my brand. And not that I wear it all the time, but something to represent your brand and to keep you on brand. Because brand recognition in color or using a signature color increases your brand recognition by 80%. There's also a level of psychology of color for different palettes and colors that will help attract a certain audience and evoke a feeling. So I put my colors here to show sort of how I express my colors and what I was trying to get out of this. So teal is bringing into my personal brand. I like the ocean. It's a level of green that also means money. So there's a lot of thought that goes into that. And then I'm having black in my brand too, to also do a level of luxury, high-end, sophistication, simplicity with the black and white. And so there's a story behind this color that every brand really should have to help elevate it. And then I have this subtle pink in here that this color actually in my brand tends to interchange. It's really what I'm feeling for that season to help elevate my brand and keep on trend to attract the audience that I'm working with at the time. But these colors right here are always staying the same. So the power of branding, I've got some facts in here to show how important it is to elevate your brand, or how your brand can elevate your income. So key factors is that authenticity is a key factor to 88% of consumers. So showing up with your personal brand is also super important for small businesses. When you're the face of your company and you're trying to promote your business and you are selling somebody on not just the brand, but you having that authenticity into your brand. So for me, it would be the teal, and my love for the ocean coming through to that. So I can excitedly sell my brand. The other thing is 48% of consumers are more likely to purchase from brands that they can trust. So having that like no factor, having that brand that is clean and representing you is going to build that trust. And it also can influence the purchasing decisions of the consumers by 46%. A similar study that found 60% of consumers considered trustworthiness and transparency the most important trait of the brand. So when you're building a brand or creating a brand, that's something that you always want to take into account. And that's where brand strategy comes into play, is really figuring out how to build that trust factor in your brand, not just the logo, the whole entire system. So setting the tone from the beginning is super important. So that's where we're talking into the strategy. 68% of businesses say brand consistency has led to a revenue growth of 10% or more. So always making sure that we are aligned with everywhere so that we're showing up recognizable and visible across any sort of platform, and people can see anything from your brand and know that that's part of your brand. So the power of branding. So 55% of brands' first impressions are based on visual perspective. So messaging is super important. There's so many factors that go into your brand, but the first thing you'll see, as represented when I started this presentation, that's the first thing is the visual. Nobody's reading anything yet. They're just looking at graphics, color, to really get that first impression. And 84% of consumers say they buy brands that they feel emotionally connected to. And companies with a strong brand story outperform their competitors by 20%. So having a story and a presence and a meaning behind it is also going to help build that connection with your audience. But then I also try to say I am all about up-leveling a brand, but also maintaining what you have from your initial brand. So whenever you're starting a business or a brand, having a good solid foundation and starting with this strategy first is going to help you to up-level later and have some authenticity, going back to that authenticity stat, to make sure that you're not completely throwing off your audience totally and being able to still up level, because as we grow as business owners in our business, we want to attract different clients. And as we evolve as people too, I think that there's always an evolution, but keeping some essence of your brand is also really important when you are up leveling. So a few examples that show this is Google before technology was too developed, and they have the cool little 3D. So they're evolving all the way, but you can still always tell that it's Google. So they're keeping, even though they might be switching out some of the colors, they're still keeping the different colors for every letter. They're just evolving it and cleaning it, but you're still always knowing that it's Google. Then we go into Starbucks. So we're still evolving all the way to the point where we don't even need Starbucks coffee in the name. So the siren here is what's always been a constant, back from the 15th century is in here. But going back here, they've always stayed true to this. They've just developed it into being something a little bit more iconic, but holding into that brand color and the brand presence. And the same thing with McDonald's. So timeless evolution. You can always update and up level the brand, but holding true to color and consistency of theme. So I wanted to throw in a case study here to show the power of elevating your brand. And also, you know, the power of up leveling too. So this was a client that came to me. They are they're in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and they are a health and wellness studio that offers IV drips. They do different weight loss preventative or weight loss treatments. They also do facials and things like that. So they are certified nurses, which is why they started this. And when they came to me, their personal brand that they brought into us was their nurses. So they wanted to come across as nurses, and they liked Top Gun and purple. So we wanted to keep some authenticity to this personal brand that they created. And so without looking like it's Top Gun. So how we got there, we started with the brand strategy and the process to research different visual things that they're related to that made sense for their audience and what their goals were. And so we go back to the drawing board of figuring out what is it that is them. Instead of just going straight into a logo, we want to figure out how to elevate this brand and how to make more and bring in more clients. That is really what they needed to do, not just have an icon that they liked. So first start with the Pinterest board research, and then we go into the visuals here. So we've got the new logo here. So we've taken their concept and their idea of the wings. So we've tried to hold on to their love for Top Care, plus working in the nurse's direction of it being the wings. We've also added a drip into it. We've held on to the color here because we also wanted to keep that authenticity to them. But if you look at the psychology of color, purple also means calming, trust, security. So for their audience, it made sense. And then we come into here, we've redone their website, and then cohesion. So making sure that they're not just a logo and they're not just showing up their website, but all of their social and marketing materials is recognizable to their brand, so that anybody can pick this up and say, oh, I know them, and then come to their social media page and recognize that they are the same brand, and having that trust and build up to be recognizable. So at the end of this whole up level of their brand, the client left a review on Google saying, after paying several companies to create my business website, I was still unsatisfied. I reached out to On Brand Designs. Kim and her team revamped my website, and my business has grown leaps and bounds ever since. I highly recommend them. So the power of up-leveling, having a really good brand, is what happened was she started out, she didn't really have a lot of clients, and then she started to market and put all this new branding and graphics out there. And she was so busy that she had to quit her full-time job to run this business, because it was a part-time job when she started. So that just makes me so excited. So it's the goal of every brand to visually make them present what they can do and offer their clients. So some of the key takeaways was we kept their signature color. So remembering signature color can increase brand recognition by 80%. And then we retained some of the essence of the original brand. So we kept in the wings as best we could. We kept in the color as best we could, but really elevated the brand to what their consumer, which was a female-based audience, that they wanted to come in. And then the business improved with the new branding. So what now? Wanted to give some immediate actionable steps that you could take if you already have a brand, or even if you have a new brand, that you could do to help bring in more money with your brand. So start by conducting your own brand audit and creating your mood board. So that Pinterest board is, I love Pinterest. You can go in a rabbit hole, but it's a really good place to start. It's better than Google because it's all image-based, and you have everybody. You can take from anybody's Pinterest board. So people are throwing up any of their work, inspiration, and it's a search engine. So it's much more powerful for visual presentation than just going straight to Google. Now you can't use any of the images, but it's there for you for inspiration. And then do some market research. So, to get there also, we had to ask some of their existing clients some questions to understand what they liked and what they were looking for. And that all factored into even the visual mood board. And then doing a color study. So there's so many places in that where you could Google to research some keywords that make sense for your audience and your personal brand and who you are. Research those words with color and see what colors come up and what colors you resonate with. So having that level of psychology in there to understand that you can always make it work for you, but it also has to make sense for your brand. Another thing that I do also in the audit is audit competitors. So who is making the most impact in the industry, and see how you can disrupt and stand out in that industry, in that space, but also not be too far off that it's going to not deter any of that audience that you're trying to attract. And then check for a cohesiveness across your existing brand and your marketing materials to make sure that you are on brand. And then go ahead and feel free to update any iconography, imagery. So it's good to up level. You can change out photos to kind of keep up with your brand and always sort of reinvent it, but have something in it that holds true to your personal style and brand and authenticity. So that is it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. So before I open this up for questions from anyone, and so if you do have any questions, you guys, please drop it into the chat, the question and answer section here. But I've got some questions for you because I have direct experience working with you. But for someone who maybe hasn't explored this in their business, or they have, but they haven't revisited it recently, what would be some red flags that you need, like that you should know about, that would indicate you would need a stronger brand? You need more cohesiveness. What are some things you look for?
Yeah, definitely not attracting the right audience. If you're not attracting the right people you want to work with, that's a huge indicator, because people are going to be, your people are going to be attracted to you. So the people that you want to work with is what that branding is going to resonate with. So if you're not attracting anyone or not the right people, that's a big red flag.
That's awesome. I've never really thought of that, because I've certainly in the past been in meetings that I'm like, oh, this is not the right fit. And then have seen that kind of evolve, and I don't have a lot of those anymore. So that's really interesting. What questions, if someone was to really want to start reaching out and doing this? I, as you know, have zero skills myself to do this. Completely, I'm useless. But what questions would you want to ask a professional before going? And do they want like a graphic designer? Do you need a web designer? Do you need a brand ambassador? There's so many different directions to go in. Or should you just go on Fiverr and get a logo built? Okay.
No Fiverr. No. Okay, so here's my take on this. If you're on a budget and you're DIY and you're just starting something as a side hustle, that's different than building a business. So if you are truly wanting to grow into like a multiple six-figure business, and there's another level that you have to go to. If you were just doing a side hustle in a candle shop or something, and you're just trying to make a few bucks here, then Fiverr, fine, it's not that much. If you're also just starting out and you don't have any budget towards it, then yes, you could go there. But I would do the steps that I said before, is like figure out who you are and your brand is and who your audience is, so that you're not just throwing something up because it looks good. There's got to be thought behind it. And when you go to someplace like Fiverr, they're not doing that. They're just doing what you're telling them to do. And most likely, and I've seen this happen, your logo, same layout and elements are being used for another logo. And that's part of how they can keep it low, is that they're purposing it in a way that they can keep the price so low, which affects trademarking. If anybody wants to down the line trademark, that's also with Canva. You can DIY it in Canva, but you can't use any of the icons or graphics that come with Canva. You can just type and then use it to bring other graphics in to manipulate. Otherwise, it's not ownable. So I think to really have a truly authentic brand that has longevity and can work in the way that you want it to hire a brand designer. So not just a graphic designer, because I can tell you just from personal experience, when I used to really be a graphic designer, I didn't have the strategy in place. And I've already redone for clients that were my freelance clients 10 years ago. I've redone stuff for them now that I understand there is a process and there is a brand strategy and research that has to go into it for it to have an impact. So I think somebody who understands that. And then as far as web design, there are people who just do web design that if you already have a brand can build out. But if you don't, going to somebody who can do the whole project holistically and carry your brand throughout all things to help with keeping that cohesive is going to be more beneficial. And, you know, in the long term, it might be more of a marketing budget for you, but it will, you know, the value of that over time, you won't have to redo it for a long time. You won't have to do anything to help sustain you and build, you know, bring in more people and clients. So the value of that than going to like a Fiverr logo that isn't going to probably be sustainable is huge. So
what I'm hearing is there's probably like a stage of business where you've
yes.
gotten this far with this much, and now it's really time to create and make an investment into bringing your business to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily want a brand that represents you now. You want a brand that you're going to grow into.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about it when you have to run a business. You want a brand that's going to help leave an impactful impression, and not have to worry and revisit your brand because something's not working or something's, you know, or you're not loving it too. So I say my tagline is I want to build a brand that people say, oh, I love it, is because you want to love it. The more passionate you are about how you show up visually in your brand is also going to make an impact on how you show up with your brand.
Absolutely. Okay. I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple questions, but before I get there, and I will get to these questions, you guys, I promise. My last question for you from me today is, what is the number one thing? I love the actual steps that you gave us. So thank you so much for that, because I love a good checklist.
Yes. And I can share that if anybody needs to.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing that everyone here today can do today?
Yeah.
To drive more revenue to our businesses within our brands? What's the number one thing we can do for our businesses today?
I think the number one thing that can be actionably done today is to check if your brand's cohesive. Check if you are, you know, telling a story with your brand that is aligned with who you are trying to attract. And that means everything that you have out there. Do you have all the right marketing materials out there? Making sure that anything that you have on social is matching what your website is, matching what your logo is. And also that, do you have a logo or do you have a brand? Really checking and seeing if you have all of those elements that bring it together. So a logo could be, you know, a logo, but then there's icons, there's graphics. Do you have any of that in your brand that is helping to elevate it? So really just going through and doing an audit and, you know, create a list of commonalities, and then also create a list of what's different about things. Are you using different fonts everywhere? Is there not one true color that's popping out to be your brand color? Are there stock images and then photo shoot images that aren't aligning? And now there's nothing wrong with stock images. I have to use it a lot of the times, but does it tell the right color story? Does it tell the right story that fits in with your brand? Or is it just a stock photo to be a stock photo? So really auditing all of your graphics and brand elements to make sure that it's cohesive and aligned.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to some questions. James wants to know, he would like you to talk more, please, about the psychology of color. I love this too, so go.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to that first impression. And so color invokes an emotion. So color is, I mean, there's so much to do with color. I mean, color could look good on somebody, not look good on somebody. That will give you a reaction to somebody based on just how they're dressed. I mean, you might see, this is kind of going away from branding, but it really does affect branding. So let's say you see somebody come in with a red dress and they look stunning and you're like immediately drawn to them in the room. And it's because of the color. Something in that color is making you react to it. And when it comes to branding, though, you want somebody that is immediately attracted to your brand based off the color, but you also want to make it appropriate for your brand. So, food, a lot of red in food, something about it makes it appealing. There's also navies in food. So, when you see yellow in food or, some bright colors, you're looking at fast food. But if you're looking at like navies and golds, you're looking at fine dining. So all of and colors together to invoke a certain emotion. So kind of also figuring out your audience. So if you're trying to be a commercial business and you're a plumber and you want to attract, all the home buyers, like you're going straight to consumers. So you want it to be colors that are more primary. You're not looking to be like a super luxury elevated high-end plumber. You just want it to be something that the masses are going to be attracted to. And so building in trust colors, you would pick blue in there because you're talking about plumbing and water. So having a reason behind each color that is in your brand, it does something in the brain for people to understand what you are without even like reading what your name is or your tagline. They can kind of figure out there. So I like, even with you, with your colors, you do have an elevated experience. And so you've got the navy, which is this rich color, and then you're having this gold to help elevate the experience. And so.
Well, I love sparkle. So if it's sparkly, I'm in.
And it brings out your personality, and that trust too is having that color that makes sense. And so a lot of times what I do is I do that whole sort of strategy where I am asking a questionnaire with my clients before I begin a project. So I want to know their goals, who their audience is, other things that they like. So I always ask, let me see other logos or brands that you're attracted to. And then I do the audit for the competitor brands. And so I'm looking at like a big visual of color. And then I go back to the color wheel where we can say like all the different meanings behind the color. And then seeing, does this align with this brand? Does this align with this audience? Does this color with these 5 words align? And then I'm checking it off to see. And then ultimately, does this brand and does this person that is, because I do work with a lot of small businesses, it mostly is personal brands. Is this color also aligning with this person's goals and this person's likes? And then that's how we also create a brand story with multiple colors and not just one.
I love that. And you are set up perfectly for the next question, because Robin wants to know if you have any tips for determining or defining who their audience may be.
That's a good one. So right off the bat, you have to figure out if it's a service or product. That's going to be 2 different ways to determine it. But really that's where the strategy comes into play. That's way before we even get to design, is figuring out who you want to attract. So you've got to figure out demographics and what you're selling. So if you're a business coach, for example, but you only want to work with female entrepreneurs that are making a certain style, that's something you kind of have to look at yourself and your own brand to define first. I don't really have the specific thing. So if you're a chiropractor and you only want to work with a specific location and a specific age range, you have to kind of know that within yourself who you want to work with, and that's how you build upon that.
Yeah. And I'll add in ours, the way we do that for our clients is one of 2 ways. We look at, what does your ideal avatar look like? If you could just create in a perfect world, this perfect client, who is it? And then we also will say, well, what about the clients you're already working with? Who would you take and just say, oh my gosh, if I could just work with 100 of you, that's what I would ever need. You're my ideal. And reverse engineering from there, what they do, industries, and all the demographics, but also figuring out, what it is that makes them, gives that chemistry to the relationship. So for us, we determine like our audience are disruptors. Businesses who want to disrupt their industries, they hand raise to work with us because they see the value in that. And businesses who do not see the value in that excuse themselves from our space, which is great because we would not be the right partner for someone who's not interested in disrupting their industry. And so that's how we do it. I hope that's helpful, Robin. Okay, another question from James. How do you approach establishing the emotional connection to the product or service? How do the visuals tie to understanding the offering?
Can you read that again?
How do you approach establishing the emotional connection to a product or service? So when you're creating the brand.
Yeah. Well, I think picking all of the things that are in that strategy, it's all going to align. So if you skip that part and you're not figuring out the goals, that's one, to figure out the emotion. So building that mood board first, that's how we get to that emotion. Because if we're building that emotion visually, that's how we're going to get to that result. So taking in, it's all of that whole process. It's not just a quick, like, throw something up and that's going to evoke emotion. It's the color that we're going to figure out. It's figuring out who that audience is. So are we going to design something that is more corporate? Are we going to design something that is more feminine? Are we going to design something that is geared towards men? So there's going to be things that affect it. There's the font choice is going to bring out emotion. So I mean, and just to talk about font, script is going to be something that's a little more delicate. So you're going to invoke an emotion of being maybe a little bit more feminine.
Mm-hmm.
If you're all caps, big bolds, like on brand designs, you're trying to make a statement. Depending on how minimalistic it is and how clean it is, you're evoking an emotion of luxury in that sense. So taking all of the things into consideration. So it's kind of like the whole picture of everything that I've explained is going to bring out that emotion. Now, how can you guarantee it? It's just making sure that you have that solid foundation and doing market research too. So asking people, what do they feel when they see this? What do they feel? I've asked people too, without telling them any context of who the brand is and what it is. What would you feel that this is? Like, what does this, make you? Yeah.
And I'd probably also say, identifying what emotion do you want to evoke is going to help you with direction as well. If you want to evoke comfort or curiosity or humor, I mean, they're all going to be different strategies, right?
Yeah. And that's where that strategy in the beginning becomes super important. So as simple as building a keyword list of those emotions that you want to invoke, and then plug them into a visual story. So type in comfort, see what comes up. And then if anything in that word comfort that you're scrolling through pops out at you, like, I'd go quick, because I want to have that emotion before I'm building out a brand. I want to be able to connect to it so that I can have that visual in my brain that when I see that, I'm evoking this emotion, I'm seeing it in my brain of what it's supposed to look like. And so, putting in those keywords to get all those emotions and just highlighting and saving into a board or on your computer, whatever picture popped out from that, then you take all of those photos, you combine them together and see what story that tells.
I've never thought of doing it like that. I like that. Maybe you should do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do with every branding client.
I love it. Okay, so the next question from James is suggestions on how to convey the brand message to the internal team. Oh, this is so good. How to make it part of the company culture.
Yes, I have a good answer for this. Well, it is super important to have brand guidelines when you're building out a team. So, and also building out other vendors that you work with too, so that they understand your brand. So a brand guidelines is a document that is going to house everything from your brand, including mission statement, those keywords that are going to invoke those emotions. You're going to want to have what types of what colors and how to use them, different typography, how to use it, your different. So when I talk about logo as opposed to a brand, is your logo is not just your one logo. It's, up here I've got my OB. That's an icon that I use for my brand. I've got sayings like stay on brand. I've got obviously with the OB. I've got like the money sign that was in the beginning of my presentation. So I have all these different elements. I've got long versions, stacked versions, all these different versions of my logo to make it a brand that I can use across different systems. And I can define where I want them, when I don't want them used. And so in your brand guidelines, you can do that too. Define this should be used here. This should be used on social media. This should be used on a darker background. This should be used on a lighter background. And so also going into playing with fonts, like what should be a heading font, what should be a paragraph font, or what could be like a disruptive font to the brand. Also laying out like what type of imagery and photos make sense for the brand, so that when you are building up this team, they know exactly like, okay, this doesn't really align with what's going on. So and you can add anything to this brand guidelines and really make it kind of like a Bible for your business. Like, we add in any type of stationery that your brand has, to make sure that if anybody's doing anything, it's always sticking within these parameters. Your LinkedIn headers, your social headers, your if you're doing merch for your brand, like letting everybody know what's good and what's not good to do.
And I think, as far as how to make it part of the company culture, I would say that it really goes along with having everyone bought into your mission, vision, and values, right? When you have a brand that aligns with your company mission and you have a team that is leaning into that, then I believe it'll naturally convey into them being bought into the brand in general. I'm reading right now, or we just finished reading 10X is Easier Than 2X, which is a phenomenal book, you guys. Love this book. But one of the things they talked about is like great leaders and great self-managing companies have brands that the team is so on board with that like they live and breathe the brand because they're so proud to be a part of it. And so I think it's really kind of bringing them in to buy into what the impact is that you are looking to make, and how the brand itself is just one visual way to bring that to the world.
Well, and I think being so passionate about your brand, and that's why I say I want my clients to say, oh, I love that, is because it goes back to like, if you love that, you're going to represent your brand in the most authentic way. And that excitement for your brand is going to show through to your team. That passion that you have for all of the brand elements. And, let's say you're hiring a VA to do your social media, or a social media person to do your social media. Like, you want that excitement every time you see it, and it to be super clear of what the visuals are supposed to look like for them.
I love it. I love it. And then Julie said that she would love information on creating a mood board. I would say, Julie, probably the best thing to do is to get directly with Kim, and I'm sure she'd be happy to share some resources. But I know Pinterest really is, I mean, it's a search engine, and we don't really look at it that way. We always look at it as like a social media site, but it really is an incredible image-based search engine to use.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, any business could be posting there just as much as other socials. So I always say, so Pinterest is not about followers, it's about views. And so because it is a search engine, it's not going to be, like when you post something on Instagram, in 2 days, it's going to be gone. Someone's going to have to actually go to your page to see it. It's not going to be at the top. But if you go into Pinterest and you're posting with keywords, I always say if you have a blog, it's a great place to post all your blog articles, because if you have a nice graphic, it's informative. You put the right SEO in there, your links to get back to your blog or your website. But people, it's always going to be relevant based on what somebody's searching for, since it is a search engine. So if somebody's typing in, let's say you are, for example, me, a brand designer, and somebody's looking for a cool logo, and they type in like logo for a esthetician company, and they put it in and mine comes up, they can save that pin, and it's building that that option that somebody's going to come across that visual and then say, hey, I really like that. Let me reach out to her to design my logo. So
I love it. I love it. If there's any other questions, speak now. It is your chance. But while we wait to see if anything else is coming in, how, Kim, can people get a hold of you if they want to experience your magic?
yeah, so onbranddesigns.com is my website, in the chat there, to kind of explore and see my different services and offerings. There are links in there to my social if you want to look and see what I'm up to lately. I do post more latest projects on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, all of those, and Pinterest. But if you want to book a free consultation and just kind of see what's going on with your brand, if you've done that cohesive audit and realized you're not cohesive or not sure if you are, please feel free to book a call with me, and we can look at it and chat and see how your brand's doing.
I believe my incredible producer, Bernie, has put our contact information for both of us in the chat. So you guys can pull that, connect with anyone that you'd like on LinkedIn as well, or any of the socials. And I just want to thank you so much for doing this. I am so happy that it's done.
Well, excited for this to be weekly and for me to participate in watching next time.
Thank you. And yes, you guys, so we are going to be doing this every single week. I'm going to highlight a different industry disruptor to share their expertise and how their expertise is going to bring more revenue for your business. There are zero problems, I'm saying it again, that more money cannot solve in your business. Zero. I have yet to see one. And how many of us have been up at night, in the middle of the night, worrying about things that honestly just a couple more deals, a couple more new clients could have solved all of those issues. So let's get off of that roller coaster as entrepreneurs. Let's really focus on what we can do to drive more revenue to our businesses. So thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of this. Next week, we have Mel McSherry, who's going to be on, and she is going to be talking about how to use your human design and your unique human design to drive more revenue to your business. I will be sending out information for that. There will also be a link for a free human design assessment that you can go to. It's not even associated with Mel, but you can find all about, where we were born, what time and date, all confidential. And we can find out exactly what our human design is. And I'll tell you guys, this has been a game changer for me in my business, is really understanding like who I am born, like part of why I'm doing this. And I'll explain that to you guys next week as well. But thank you, everyone. I am open to feedback. I'm open to loving constructive criticism. I am open to hearing all of the experts that you want to see highlighted here and the things that you really want to learn more about, because that's what we're here to educate you guys about amazing ways that you can grow your businesses. So I will sign off for now. Thank you, everyone. This has been just a dream come true for me. I've been thinking and dreaming about this for a really long time, and to see this actually in existence is so exciting. My heart is full. I am so grateful, and I look forward to seeing you next week.